So while I have the laptop out, I've decided that I would like to go on about global warming just a little bit. It's one of my favorite topics to talk and debate about because there's just so many. It's very intricate. It's very detailed, but things fit together so beautifully that I just find it to be a really beautiful confirmation of the powers of science. And not particularly unusual indictment of the bad philosophy of the right, um, and a testament to the scientific process in general. Um, so, well, my favorite place to start when it comes to global warming is with my favorite planet, Venus. Venus, you may or may not know, is the next closest planet to the Sun. It's approximately the same size as Earth, is approximately the same age as Earth, and has a lot of characteristics in common with Earth. Except, as many of you know, it is a terrifying hellscape. Any of you who have played Kerbal Space Program out there and have been so bold as to land on June, their approximation for Venus, know that the atmosphere is also extremely dense, so dense that it's a lot more like landing in a liquid than it is like landing in than it is in air, although it is most certainly air. Um, the temperature is also ridiculously high, hundreds of degrees Celsius. We've only managed to get one probe to land on the surface, sent by the Russians. It lasted a few hours and then melted to death. And we got a few pictures of this hellscape and some basic readings. Like the pressure, again, because of the atmosphere's thickness, is extraordinarily high, rendering some things liquid on the surface, like sulfuric acid rains from the sky. There's pools of some metals and that kind of stuff as well, I think. And it's a nasty place. You don't want to be there. Mercury has the decency to have no atmosphere whatsoever, so like it's just like a scarred hellscape. It's just been bleached of basically anything. Everything about it has evaporated. Um, Whereas Venus is more like a furnace. And it's a furnace because of its atmosphere, and its atmosphere is so thick because of the carbon dioxide. In particular, the carbon dioxide, which makes up a much higher percentage of the atmosphere on Venus than it does on Earth, um, of course, amplifies the greenhouse effect. Now, because of the cloud cover that is also on Venus, which is permanently covering the planet, um, only about 20% of the solar energy from the sun actually reaches the surface of the planet. So it's actually very dark on Venus. And again, so they're much closer to the sun than we are. But they receive 20% less solar energy than we do. So they're closer, wherein they would receive much more, and like we're all this distance away, and the sun can still burn the shit out of you when it bleaches things and will kill phones and make lighters explode. So just imagine being a whole planetary orbit's worth closer. And don't worry, I know you can't. And so being so much closer, but still only receiving 20% of that energy. However, given the power of carbon dioxide, given its re-radiative properties, it is still ridiculously hot on the planet. So given that given that they receive 20% less energy, one would expect them to be like 80% cooler, or sorry, 20% of the energy, so they would be 80% cooler. But of course, that's not the case. They're several orders of magnitude hotter. And that's that's just basic physics. There really is no arguing with that idea and that statement. If you are wondering what happens, if we could do the same thing to Mars. Mars has a very thin atmosphere, and one of the ways we could thicken it, and in fact, several books have been based on this very thing, including the excellent trilogy Green Mars, and Blue Mars, and I can't remember. Red Mars, Green Mars and Blue Mars. I think that's what it is. I can't remember the author, of course, but excellent books. All you have to do is release carbon dioxide there, and the atmosphere would thicken, and the temperatures would warm, and you would have a more functional planet that looked a lot more like Earth. Now, because Mars's atmosphere this is the thing, a lot of people like Mars's atmosphere is hundreds and hundreds of times thinner. Venus's atmosphere is hundreds and hundreds of times thicker. We're of course the Goldilocks, and Mars is hundreds and hundred times thinner. So it's not like I'm anticipating people being like, oh well, but it would take a really long time and a lot of energy and a lot of carbon dioxide to convert Mars's atmosphere to something Earth-like, which is why in that book people live in domes. But I mean that's just an insufficient level of imagination and understanding of magnitude, because obviously the amount of carbon dioxide that humans have released since we discovered that releasing carbon dioxide is great for powering things is quite a lot. People will also bring up the volcanoes issue. Oh, there's volcanoes. They release huge amounts of carbon dioxide, and they're really bad for they don't seem to affect the environment very much. And for one thing, that's that carbon dioxide is being released on top of our carbon dioxide. It's supplemental. They add together. I don't understand what the point that's trying to be made here is, but obviously it's a very poor one. People also bring up methane from cows, and methane is bad, but methane decomposes into carbon dioxide, so even that's not and that's still an indictment of wasteful capitalist production, rampant production, and factory farming in general, which does seem to be overly intense, and that's usually not great for the environment, but and everything's connected, anyways, what is another thing that I hear? Another common argument is, that carbon dioxide is good for the planet, and that's just, planets will grow faster, and that is just not how it works. It is true that plants will grow faster, however, that is only up to a very narrow point, and there's really very little room for improvement there. It also isn't going to improve them very much. They're going to grow maybe 1 to 5% faster, and it's not, and also by doing so, the temperatures will change, and plants are much more sensitive to temperature than they are to carbon dioxide concentration. So whatever gains there will be lost by the need to plant things in Alberta. I don't know where we're going to grow the things that normally grow in Alberta. I guess Antarctica. All we'll have to do is go to war with Russia for that. So, the carbon dioxide good is obviously just a terribly blatantly stupid argument. Also, another example of what we know will happen on Earth in particular, because some people would be like, oh, it's Venus, Venus is not Earth, so, who knows what will happen. Things don't necessarily translate directly. And that is a true statement, in the sense that we can never really know things, but yet still we can know things well enough to land things on Mars. We landed an SUV on Mars 2.5 years after we predicted where we wanted it to go, and we were within a meter of where we wanted it to go. And the nature of the accomplishment of landing the Curiosity rover on Mars is significant. The Sky Crane system, we know things. We can figure things out with a reasonable level of confidence based on inference, and this is just basic logic that my conservative father taught me. So I don't know why he is not able to apply it, but whatever. Anyways, so the oh shit, I lost my train of thought. Let's see, we're talking about carbon dioxide, we were talking about plants, oh man, I really lost it there. That's a terrible shame. Well, I mean, the basic thing is again, maybe we'll just do a little bit of review. Carbon dioxide, the physics of carbon dioxide is something we know about. We're able to look at Venus and say, obviously look at what's happened there based on their atmosphere and the amount of carbon dioxide in their atmosphere. We have a pretty good idea of what will happen in our history, to us, if we had a similar level of carbon dioxide. Right. So the thing that I forgot was the Paleocene-Eocene Thermal Maximum was a period of time in the Earth's history. I think it was like 200 million years ago or something like that, where a sudden and significant increase in carbon dioxide was correlated with a sudden and significant increase in temperature. Weird. It's almost as if carbon dioxide re-radiates solar energy absorbed by the sun. We don't know where the carbon dioxide came from, so, that's the part that people complain about, as if that's fucking relevant. The relevant part is carbon dioxide showed up, temperatures went up. What's more, the rate that carbon dioxide was introduced into the atmosphere was less than the rate that we are currently introducing carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. And I believe this period of time lasted, a few thousand years. I want to say like 20,000 years or so. Long enough that the effects were certainly noticeable, and there was a significant cumulative effect. And yeah, temperatures surprisingly raised quite a lot. They went up by like 5 to 10 degrees Celsius. Let's see. Let's just Google it. Well, let's wiki it, as a matter of fact. Oh yeah, so there you go. So the warm period lasted for 200,000 years, and global temperatures increased by 5 to 8 degrees Celsius. And the period of carbon injection was about 20,000 years. And it seems like there was 2 pulses of release. The first lasting less than 2,000 years. The second one lasting, I guess, 18,000 years. So one of the other things that happened, that's right. So one of the dangers of increased carbon dioxide release and temperature increases is this possibility that it might destabilize existing methane stores that exist at the bottom of the ocean. They're very thermally sensitive. It's literally methane like frozen in chunks at the bottom of the ocean. Sometimes shock can disturb them, so like earthquakes can also disrupt them. But ocean temperature is one of the key predictors. Like the warmer the ocean is the easier it is for them to be disrupted. And when they are disrupted, there tends to be a chain reaction, which releases a whole bunch. And again, like this is a geological amount of methane. Not just like not like a lake's worth or something like that. This is an ocean barrier's worth of methane. Methane itself being extremely global warming effective, having a significant effect on the global warming effect, and is decayed by solar rays into carbon dioxide, which makes it less effective, but still very effective at increasing the global warming effect. So there's a lot of room for things to get out of control, and that's kind of where the doomsday scenarios tend to come from. There's, like when we look at other planets, there are runaway scenarios that made them the way they are. Mars is the way it is because of a runaway effect causing it to lose its atmosphere. Venus is the way it is because of a runaway effect causing it to amplify its atmosphere. And again, we're really lucky in the Goldilocks zone. Right. So the final and most hilarious argument that I hear is basically the God argument, which is God would not have put the planet here and us on it with all of these resources in such a way as to endanger our lives. He's not going to let us hurt ourselves by consuming the planet. This is, of course, the most alarming and ridiculous and insane views on it. However, it is a view that I've heard from my father and from a conservative I was arguing with online, a Canadian conservative who I was arguing with online, and a few other people, who obviously existed and no doubt voted in the last American election. Um, like this is the like what holy shit, like this is a really good example of the kind of damage that religion is still doing to us and our society. And these are Christians, so like these are people who are normally considered to be unharmful to modern society. What harm are their beliefs doing? Well, not only did they prevent stem cell research for a long time, but other than that, they have decided to reject the evidence of global warming because they think that God won't let them hurt themselves. God would not dare put enough resources on the planet in order to let us, destroy ourselves, which is insane, absolutely insane. Yeah, and you hear all kinds of um, arguments from perfection, basically, like, oh, how convenient it is that there's a moon and that we have Jupiter and the asteroid belt and all of these other things, this perfectly tuned universe that we live in, that we just happened to sprout life. I mean, like, how absurd is that? Obviously we're here because it just so happens that everything worked out in such a way as to be perfectly tuned. If the universe was not tuned in a way for us to be here, then we wouldn't be here. There's no, I have no need for that theory of this need of God to have done that, all of these things. But and I think that right there is what gets at the the immovableness of some people's belief and rejection of global warming theory. In like, if they're wrong about this, if they're wrong that God wouldn't let America hurt itself, then obviously, they could be wrong about their religion as well. Who knows what else they could be wrong about? And that's a scary thought if you are a closed-minded, conservative, religious jackass. And like, what are you gonna do? There's just no, what evidence can one provide that's gonna convince them, hey, God has not in fact put things here in such a way as to maintain your safety. You could die at any moment by practically anything. And the fact that not only that you are here, but that all of this society exists, is pretty goddamn amazing. And we did it ourselves by thinking really hard about how to do it, not by thinking that, oh, I'm sure we're just going to be okay. Things will work out. God is on our side. There's nothing convincing about that belief or argument. And what's more is there shouldn't be anything convincing about that argument. I mean, it just has no evidence. And if you're believing things without evidence, then you can believe basically anything. And, at the very least, you shouldn't have sex with those kinds of people. And that's my proposal. My modest proposal is, if you know someone who has a really stupid idea, and they want to have sex with you, just don't do it. And that's really all I have to say about that. This is my collection of thoughts on global warming. I think I covered just about anything. I'm sure the conservatives who might be watching this will come up with all kinds of ridiculous explanations and conspiracy theories and nonsense about like the total the non-gate that is Climate Gate and that kind of stuff, the East Anglia University. It's just ridiculous. So I would recommend people read the Ars Technica articles on global warming. All of them are fantastic. The one on how climate models work, the one on the East Anglia Climate Gate scandal, non-scandal, and so on and so forth. Also, the Wikipedia entry for the Paleocene-Eocene Thermal Maximum. That's Paleocene-Eocene. And hopefully y'all can spell thermal maximum. Um, and like the Wikipedia entry for global warming, like really basic stuff here. Um, uh, yeah. Also, the Wikipedia entry for carbon dioxide explains the way that it re-radiates solar energy and how we know that it does that. And let's see, Bill Nye has also talked about it. Neil deGrasse Tyson has talked about it. Lots of scientists have talked about it. Like pretty much all scientists believe that physics is a thing, and that we can determine whether or not a particle will re-radiate the energy emitted by the sun, and sure enough, it does. So the more we put in the atmosphere, the warmer the atmosphere will get, and that's all there is to it. Alright, thanks again for listening. Talk to you later.